and it will be sent out to you via email afterward. So good morning and welcome to the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance first virtual training for members. During this training, we will cover basic information for grant writing and how to use our new grant software. If you have any questions, please use the chat feature, but keep in mind we will have time for questions and answers at the end of the training. Tommy, our advocacy director, will be our chat moderator today and help us answer your questions. Let us take just a moment to hear some Zoom meeting tips from Tommy.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for caring about your communities and doing the important work that you're doing right now. Just a couple of Zoom norms. Please don't feel obligated to be on your camera. Like, you don't have to have your camera on. We know that there's lots going on, and sometimes I can focus better when I'm not distracted by my own face. Please be kind in the chat. We will get to your questions as soon as possible. And my understanding is that most of you, if not all of you, will be muted. But like Jessica said, type questions in the chat, and anything that doesn't get answered, we'll take care of at the end of this call or offline if we need to. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but I guess I'm gonna pass it over to Will to talk about some technical support.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say other than if any of y'all just run into any problems with your Zoom, please reach out to me through the chat box and I'd be happy to help you to the best that I can.
Thank you, Will. Just as a reminder, this training is being recorded. After it concludes, we will send the link to our YouTube channel and the backup documents to this training via email. Now I'd like to introduce Alex Handfinger. Alex is the Nutrition Outreach Manager here at the Alliance, working with families to help them shop for and cook healthy meals on a budget. Prior to that, he served as Grant Foundation Coordinator at the Arkansas Food Bank, where he secured over $1.5 million in grants for hunger relief programming. We're excited to hear his lessons learned from 10+ years of grant writing and management experience. Please welcome Alex Handfinger.
The crowd goes wild. You don't actually have to. Well, good late morning to y'all. Happy Friday. The sun is shining here in Fayetteville, so I hope it is where you are as well. And I'm really excited to get to talk to y'all today on our first virtual training. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, keep those questions flowing in the chat. Oh, look, already having fun with technical things. I don't want to zoom out, I want to zoom in. So we got a very busy agenda today. We're gonna work on defining grants, talking about grants glossary since they got kind of their own weird language, step-by-step guide to how you actually research and write and submit and report on a winning grant. We'll talk about some grant opportunities for y'all outside of the Alliance. We'll then spend some time talking about our capacity building grants, and then I know Jess is very excited to show you our brand new electronic grant system for those capacity building grants this year. So she'll do a walkthrough, and then we will leave time for questions at the end. So obviously that is a lot to cover. So keep those questions going in the chat as we go, and Tommy will do her best to help me get to those. And yeah, again, just thank you for everything that you do in your communities. This year more than ever, you know, the work that you do is literally saving this country and saving people's lives. So can't thank you enough, and hope that this can be useful to you. So real quick, let's get on the same page about what a grant is. You know, here's some Wikipedia definitions, but moral of the story is a grant typically is going to be what we would call restricted funds. So many of you know in the nonprofit world that we prefer unrestricted funds. We love when people just give us money and we can do whatever we need to do with it. We can pay the light bill, we can buy a new freezer, we can buy food. But sadly, grants are typically given to us for a specific purpose. So, you know, it's almost like a contract. We say, hey, if you give us this money, then we will, you know, buy a new freezer and feed more hungry people with it. And then at the end of it, we're supposed to tell the people, hey, we bought that freezer and fed more people with it. So grants are typically funds for a specific purpose and not, it's a lot harder to find those sort of unrestricted funds that we love in the nonprofit world. As I mentioned, grants have their own very special language that they like to try to confuse us with. So just going over some of those commonly used terms. The deadline or the date due by, we may think we know what that means, but I'm going to encourage you during this presentation that the date that something is due is not the day that we should be handing it in. Y'all know stuff happens, and sometimes the internet goes down or the system goes down or the whatever. And so I just hate spending all that time working on a grant and then I get there to that last moment of submission and something doesn't work, and just for some stupid reason, you know, I don't end up submitting it. So very much encourage you to submit things before the deadline. And on the bonus side, you will impress the people who you're writing the grant to when 90% of the grants are coming in the day it's due. They'll think that you will be trustworthy with their money if you submit it early. A fiscal year is any 12-month period for which accounting books are kept. So, you know, someone might award you a grant that runs from June through July, which is obviously not the way our calendar works, but just something to keep in mind that a grant fiscal year could be different than your typical fiscal year. FDO is shorthand for Foundation Directory Online, and this is sort of the master grants database of every single foundation in the country that gives away money. This is where you can find information on them. And yes, I will be telling you how you can access that. A Form 990 is a tax form, and these are actually required to be filed and publicly available. You can literally just search the internet, any grant that, you know, funder that you think of, you can search Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance Form 990. And when it's a foundation, they'll actually on there list who their board of directors are, if there's any instructions for applying, what are grants, you know, what are the grants they gave that year, what size and to who. So this can be a lot of very useful information on that form to tell you who do they typically give to, what's the size, what do they give for, do I know anyone on the board of directors. So learning how to read tax forms will definitely come in handy in writing grants. LOI usually means letter of interest or intent. And so for some grants, they say, hey, instead of, you know, spending all this time on this huge grant that you may or may not get, why don't you just submit a shorter sort of summary of that grant to us first, and then we can look at that and tell you if we want a bigger application or not. Now, at first, this sounds like it's extra work because, you know, you got to do the LOI and then the full grant. But I actually really appreciate when funders do this because, you know, then I can spend a lot less time on the summary and know if they're actually interested before, you know, submitting a much larger grant that I spend more time on. Overhead or operating expenses. And Nell, sorry, I see some things in the chat. So Nell, it is supposed to be directory over directly. So thank you for catching that. And Lupita, if y'all could direct chat messages to everyone, that will help make sure that Tommy gets them, because I'm bad at talking and reading at the same time. So overhead or operating expenses, typically refers to those things that, we all know keep our organization going: the staffing, the rent, the phone. And oftentimes many funders don't want to fund these things, sadly. RFP, RFA just means request for proposals or applications. It's basically a funder saying, hey, I'm looking for people to apply for my money. And then restricted, designated, directed would describe how grant funds are used. And so typically that means that you can't just use them for anything. And, depending on your accounting system, you may actually want to keep, grant funds in a separate account so that you make sure you don't accidentally, pull from them for something else. Moving to our next slide, we will go through a step-by-step grants guide from your plan, research, application, award, and reporting. So where do you find funding? My biggest suggestion is going to be, first, reach out to your local United Way or Community Foundation chapter. Every single county in Arkansas is covered by both a regional United Way and a community foundation. And literally, it's their job to support nonprofits in their community, including connecting them to donors. So building relationships with those two organizations will go a long way. Your local businesses are generally, most companies have some sort of corporate giving, whether that's Harps or the local hardware store, but the businesses in your community are going to be the most likely ones to give you funding. So instead of always going after all these big national things that seem like they're these giant organizations, you've actually got a much better chance just walking around your downtown and talking to the local businesses around there. This seems like cheating, but a lot of grants have a requirement that when they're awarded, the nonprofit sends out a press release and social media and advertises it. And so if you see another nonprofit in your area says, hey, we just got money from this organization, well, guess what? That might be a good organization for you to approach as well. Grantstation.com and grants.com are both paid subscriptions. So they're not my strongest recommendation, but sometimes through your local library or through your local community foundation, they'll actually let you use their subscriptions. So, so that is, if you can get access to that, great. Again, FDO Foundation Directory Online. This is the master database of all grants. This is also a paid subscription, but I know at the Central Arkansas Library System in Little Rock, in the main library on the 4th floor, you can actually get free access to Foundation Directory Online. So my recommendation is, if your local library doesn't offer that same access, then bring a little USB flash drive down to the main library next time you're in Little Rock, go up to the 4th floor, do whatever research you need, download the spreadsheets of whatever searches you do, and then take it back home and you've got that information, you're good to go. And then I'll be talking about some other external grant opportunities as well. Lupita, I do see your question about the Form 990N because your organization is under $50,000, and that is totally fine. Don't worry, you're doing things right there. The Form 990, which is a longer form, is only applicable to larger organizations, which would apply hopefully to anyone that you're seeking funding from. All right, so some more about research. So when you're searching, let's say through Foundation Directory Online, where do you even begin? So what I would do is look for funders that fund similar issues, right? So I assume most of y'all are trying to do hunger relief. So you probably, wouldn't search for funders who build playgrounds. That's great, that's helpful. That's not what we're looking for here. Similar geographic areas. If there's a funder that only funds in California, well, there's no point in writing to them, is there? And budget size. If there's funders that, give $200,000 is their average grant size, and your organizational budget is $5,000, then they're probably not going to be giving you a $200,000 grant. And, I can't even do the math on how much bigger that is for your budget, but You want to look for things that are similar to the size that you can handle. So if I was at Foundation Directory Online, I would search for, I'm looking for funders who fund hunger relief in Pulaski County or Arkansas County or wherever you are, and see, you know, who's actually a good fit. Always do your homework. Of course, you want your funders to, you know, this is about building a relationship and about building a relationship where they trust you. And so always, you know, look to see if they have a website. If they don't, then search Foundation Directory Online, search for their Form 990. But don't get in a situation where you end up calling someone from the foundation and asking a question that's listed on their public website, because they're going to say, why am I going to give these people my money if they can't even find my website? Avoid mission drift. So this is a real key one. It's real tempting in nonprofits. We've got real tight budgets to, you know, kind of chase the money. And if, you know, maybe we do hunger relief, but we see a grant, you know, that's $50,000 for, you know, doing healthcare screenings. And that's very important. And if you have the capacity to do that, that's wonderful. But if that's going to end up taking all of your limited time away from the hunger relief mission and to a different mission, then you're not going to do either thing really well. So it's really tempting to follow that money, but we really need to sort of stay in our lane and think about, you know, make that project plan first. What is it we want to do? How do we want to serve our community? What are we good at? And then finding funding that supports that and not the other way around, because then we'll just be pulled in a million different directions, doing a lot of things not very well. And I know this is scary for some folks, cold calling, but on every, you know, Form 990, those tax forms, there's often a phone number, a way to actually reach out and call. And it's a much better investment of your limited, important time to just call a funder first and have a conversation about what you're thinking and have them tell you no on the front end than it would be to spend all of this time developing this grant application that they're not ever going to look at. So, you know, I'll say this a bunch, but you have a much better chance of submitting one grant application where you've had a conversation with someone at the foundation than you do submitting 100 applications where you haven't talked to anyone. Grant writing is about relationship building. And so you have very limited time. Again, it's about making it worth your while. So have that phone call, make sure they're on board on the front end before you invest all of this time writing something that they won't even look at. I'm not very good at clicking forward. All right, grant applications. So always read through the entire application first. Again, you don't want to spend all this time working on something and then at the end realize there's that one little line in there that said, oh, by the way, we don't give to churches. Well, that was a big waste of your time. But the nice thing about grant writing is once you've written one grant, it's pretty much just grant copy and pasting, because most grants have a lot of the same components they require. So, you know, you usually need to change some things, but, you know, once you've written one, you've written most of them. So they're usually going to have these components. And so what I recommend is keeping these things in a place in your organization that multiple people can access them, that if you're not available, someone knows how to find. So, you know, whenever you move on from your pantry, there's someone else there that knows, okay, here's our previously written grants. We have good records. We'll just take that and modify it a little bit, moving on to the next thing. So it's so important. You don't want to spend all this time on a grant application and then have a bunch of typing or grammatical errors. And as smart as you are and as great as the work you do, you know, it's kind of like looking through resumes. Typically, most funders get a lot more applications than they do ability to fund. And so they'll look for anything that just makes it easy to throw your application out. And so it's really important that you really go for perfection on these. One way to do that is tailor the application to the donor or foundation that you're writing to. So for instance, if you're writing to a healthcare foundation, let's say Blue and You Foundation, talk about the importance of hunger relief work and food insecurity and how that relates to health. I mean, we all know that people who are well fed are healthier, right? But actually draw out, those connections in the application. Don't leave anything for question, make it very obvious to people. And so if you're writing to a nutrition foundation, talk about nutrition. If you're writing to a faith-based one, talk about your faith-based work. Always tailor that application. One of my favorite quotes about grant writing is write without fear, edit without mercy. And so we've all been there. We've been sitting there staring at our blank computer screen or, blank piece of paper, and we just don't know where to start. We're just thinking, yeah, I don't even know what to do. I got writer's block. And so the most important thing about writing is just to start writing. Just start throwing it all out there. Just don't worry about what it sounds like, what it looks like, anything. Just start putting all the words on that piece of paper. And then on the back end, it's much easier to edit stuff that's already out there than it is to actually, to start writing. So just get that stuff out there. But then when you're editing, no holds bar, that's when you're looking for perfection. It's really important to always have someone outside your organization or unfamiliar with your work read through the proposal, because when we read our own writing, we read what we thought we wanted to say, not what it actually says on the paper. So it's so key to have someone else read through it who doesn't know anything about your work, who can just say, what do you mean? What even is a food pantry, or what is your Wednesday distribution? Again, submit early. Can't emphasize that enough. Things go wrong. And yeah, keep good files. Make sure others in your organization know about it so you can write more in the future. So cool, you got funded. Now what do? Read through that entire award letter, because sometimes there's some really important information in there, like, hey, we're not actually going to send you this check until you send this agreement back in. Or we need you to do a check presentation, or you're going to report on this date, or you applied for $20,000 and we're actually giving you $10,000. All of that is very important. Look at your reporting requirements and make sure that you have an evaluation plan in place on the front end so that you can measure what you need to measure as you go. So if you write a grant saying, I'm going to use this money to distribute 50,000 pounds of food, let's say, well, then you got to make sure that you have a way to measure how many pounds of food you're distributing so that by the end you can actually report on that. I've more times than you can imagine, I've been in organizations and we get to that report and we say, uh-oh, we don't actually have that information. So make sure on the front end. And then always ask for feedback from your funders, whether they awarded you the grant or not. Oftentimes they'll say, hey, we're too busy, we can't. But when they can, if you got funded, you can learn what they liked about the application and you can do that again. And if you didn't get funded, you can hopefully learn what to do better next time. So of course, this is relational, so saying thank you is very important. I think a handwritten thank you can go a long way towards leaving an impact. Even something where, let's say you get a grant for distributing food and you hear from one of your clients, how, let's say you get a grant for, a new fridge so that you can have more fresh produce. And one of your clients tells you this amazing story about how nice it is, how much more produce is coming through. Well, even just writing up that story and sending that to the funder, think about how much more of an impact that story is going to leave than all of these different numbers and reports that they're getting from everyone else. So look for that personal touch to say thank you, because it'll leave an impact. And then under Arkansas law, for any donation that's over It used to be $250. I'd have to confirm that's still the same. That you need to send an official, essentially tax receipt with the amount of the check, the date it was received, and that fun little wordy sentence there. So reporting is about showing impact. Number one key thing here is communicate any issues or changes early on and just be honest. You know, no funder wants to hear at your end of grant report that, oh, actually, none of this worked out. We did everything completely differently, and this is the first you're hearing about it. This is about building a relationship with the funder so that hopefully you can continue to get funding from them the following year. So if you see anything changing, just reach out to them and be honest. Most funders that I've worked with are happy to say, hey, let's totally understand. We know how it goes. You're good to go. But a lot of them, if you wait until the back end, will say, well, we're definitely not going to give you money again because you don't do what you said you were going to do. Make sure you measure as you go and even build in regular check-ins with your team. Again, make sure that you're measuring the things you need to measure, that you're on track for all your targets. You know, too often I've been in nonprofits where the grant report is due and that's the first time we even realize that we have to spend the money, and all of a sudden we're in a frenzy to try to do something so we have something to report on. So build those check-ins in. Again, can't emphasize enough, submit early. And I'm gonna say, you know, it's extra work, but go ahead and always submit a report whether they ask for one or not. Because if they don't ask for a report and you submit one, again, writing grants is about you sticking out among, you know, all these hundreds of amazing hunger relief organizations that are writing to them. How do you stick out in their mind? Well, they didn't even ask for a report, but you still sent them all this amazing data and stories showing them the impact of their funding. So yeah, it's a little bit of extra work, but it can really go a long way to getting you more funding, which is the goal here. So a lot of people, you know, I've had some success in writing grants, and a lot of people ask me, you know, what's your secret? You know, what's the magic? You know, can you write grants for me? And I say, well, actually, I can't, because the best people to write grants for your organization are the people familiar with the work. It's just like everything else in life. Sadly, as you know, we find out as we get older that really this is about relationships. This is about, you know, behind any funder, even if it's Bank of America or Blue Cross, you know, it sounds like these giant corporations, but at the end of the day, at those corporations, at those foundations, are real human beings on the other side of it. And this is about developing a relationship and a connection with them. So again, out of those, you know, hundreds of grants they get and they can only fund 10 of them, how do you stick out in their mind? And so it's about relationships. And actually, Patrick O'Sullivan from the Balloon U Foundation pointed out that part of relationships is performance, right? So being responsible with the money that you've already gotten from a foundation and communicating well on the front end about any changes, reporting well, doing what you said you were going to do is the best way to ensure that you get more funding in the future, right? So if you get a grant from somebody, you know, just run off with the money and then write to them again next year, why are they going to trust you with their money, right? And of course, this will also apply to our capacity building grants. So real quick, I think these are some of the better opportunities for a lot of our member agencies and food pantries. This will go real quick, and I am more than happy, you know, after this presentation to connect with any of you to help you find these websites, to edit your grants. You know, that is what I'm here for, is to support you. The Energy Charitable Foundation, next opportunity is going to be February 1st. And usually, if you're shooting for a grant, I would start working at least 2 months before it's due on that process, because it can take a while to get everything together. Walmart, you know, has their local community grants that they accept most of the year. The Blue and U mini grants, yes, it's only $1,000, but it is the easiest $1,000 that I've ever gotten. Typically, the size and requirements of the application are proportional to how much money it is. So while, you know, obviously it's tempting to go after $150,000 over $1,000, the $1,000 grant, you know, you could probably write that one in an hour. $150,000 one is probably going to take 2 weeks. And Laura Lee, I see your question. Blue and U is the foundation for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arkansas. It's called the Blue and U Foundation for a Healthier Arkansas. And they have a health focus. So definitely when you're writing to them, emphasize how important, you know, the food pantry and food security is for the health and well-being of folks. Tyson, obviously, big in the hunger relief world, and can't emphasize enough, your local community foundation and United Way is really, I think, the best place to start. So I'm going to talk about our capacity building grants real quick before handing it over to Jess, who is the boss of capacity building grants and is really excited to show you that new system this year. So we do award grants to, you know, improve or increase your ability to, you know, serve the hungry. So think of, you know, they're called the capacity building grants for a reason. So we are not going to give you money for food, but we can give you money to expand or improve your facility or program. So maybe that's, you know, buying a new fridge or freezer or shelving, or, you know, changing your waiting room so it's more friendly to seniors, or increasing the number of people that, or geographic area that you serve. So it's about expanding your capacity. So sadly, like many grants, we won't be giving you money for holiday food or operational costs or salaries. It's about building that capacity. Any member organization that serves the hungry is eligible. I assume that most of you are members, but if not, you're definitely going to want to be after this call. And yeah, the application is pretty straightforward. It's honestly one of the more straightforward applications out there. So thank you for that, Jess. But it basically just asks, why do you want to do it? How's it going to help? What's your budget? And then quotes if it's anything, you know, like a big piece of equipment. Like most grants, there's going to be reports required at the end. That's just, you know, what did you do? Anything that differed, any major problems, copies of receipts, photos if it's a, you know, photo-friendly project. Of course, send that in on time. Can't emphasize enough if you want to get a grant the following year. And yeah, have your overall budget, your previous year's financial statement, staff and board, and then your IRS letter of 501c3 status or church affiliation. So I am going to pass it over to our membership manager, Jess, who will walk you through the system, and then we will definitely have more time at the end for questions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was great. So we're going to cover our new system. It's called Found It. I had sent out some training videos earlier, and I know a lot of people weren't able to view them. So we're going to view 2 of them today. It's going to step you through how to create your account and how to apply for funding. And then we're actually going to give you a sneak peek of the capacity building grant. And we'll actually go question by question through the form. It's a very simple form. If you're familiar with any kind of online form, it's, you know, click button here, type in here, or attach a file. Super simple. We will be sending out an email to current members only on November the 30th. So make sure your membership is renewed and current. It'll have a link to the grant account, or the grant link to set up your account. You won't be able to actually apply until December the 1st, but you can go ahead and set that up. And then once December the 1st hits, you can begin applying, and you have until January the 8th to get that submitted. So you have plenty of time. The first thing I'd like to cover is how to set up your account. And so I'm going to share the screen. Alex, can you stop share so that I can, aha. All right, here we go.
As an applicant, you will access the system via the logon page. The foundation may have provided you with a link to this page, or it may be hyperlinked on the foundation's website. If you've already created an account, you may enter your email and password and log right in. Otherwise, you'll want to click on the Create New Account button. If at any time after creating an account you cannot remember your password, you may click on the Forgot Your Password button. Enter your email address and you will be sent a link to reset your password. Let's walk through creating a new account. Creating an account is a multi-step process, with the first section collecting organization information. After all the organization information has been entered, scroll down and click Next. Keeping in mind that every foundation's registration may be slightly different, so note the asterisks next to each field indicating required information. The next section is your user information. It is very important to note the email/username field, as it becomes your username in the system. Once the user information fields are complete, click Next. Keep in mind that if you need to navigate back to a previous section, you must use the Previous button. This will keep all the information in the previous fields intact. If you attempt to navigate to the previous section by using the browser's Back button, you will lose all the information that you've already entered. In the next section, you indicate if you are the organization's executive officer. If you are, click Yes, and you are taken to a section of optional fields that includes just some additional information to provide. If you are not the organization's executive officer, click No. And when you click Next, you will need to provide the executive officer's information. Once the executive officer's information is entered, click Next, where you finally arrive at creating a password. Please note the password requirements at the top of this section. Once the password is created, click the Create Account button. On the next page, confirm that you are receiving emails from the system. Follow the on-screen instructions and click Continue to finish the registration process. Now you have an account in the system, and remember, this is the account that you will use for both present and future applications.
Okay, that was pretty simple. We're going to switch over to the next tutorial. It's going to show you how to apply for funding. Let me pull it up.
And Jess, as you're doing that, I saw there's one question in the chat about, do y'all do one account per nonprofit, or is there one account per individual, even if there's multiple individuals with the nonprofit?
Let me finish the tutorials and then I'll go back to that question.
Upon creating an account and accessing the system for the first time, you will land on the Apply page. All other times you log into the system, you will be taken directly to the dashboard, which is accessible by clicking the Home icon in the upper navigation menu. On the Apply page, any current open opportunities you can apply for are present, and information about each opportunity will be listed with it. If you've been provided an access code, you may enter it now to view the specific process you've been invited to apply to. You can preview the first form in the funding opportunity by clicking the Preview button. To start a request, click on the blue Apply button next to the opportunity you'd like to apply to. Clicking Apply will take you into the first form that you need to complete and submit. Depending on the foundation, the form will likely be an LOI or an application. In this example, we're starting at the application stage. Note that your contact information automatically populates at the top of the form. You can edit this information by clicking the pencil icon, and you can also view your email history. If the foundation allows you to update your organization information, you will see the edit icon next to the organization information as well. If not, you must contact the foundation directly to have organization information updated. If you'd like a PDF copy of the application, you can click the Question List button. Please note that if this form has a specific deadline, it will be listed at the top of the form. Depending on the foundation, you may or may not be able to submit after the deadline has passed. Once the deadline has passed, if the past due message reflected at the top of the form is orange, you may still submit the form. If the past due message is reflected in red, you no longer have the option to submit the form. If you are not allowed to submit the form and you attempt to submit it, you will receive a message that will tell you that the deadline has passed and you can no longer submit. Work your way through the form, responding to the fields as you go. Note that any fields with an asterisk are required fields and must be completed prior to submitting an application. As you complete the form, the system will auto-save every 100 characters, or every time you click out of a field. Do note that some fields have character limits. Responses that are longer than the set limit will be saved, but an error message will appear informing you that the limit has been exceeded. You will not be able to submit the form until the length of the response has been decreased in accordance with the limit. File upload fields will only accept one file per field. And note that it does have a size limit. If you attempt to upload a file that is larger than the set limit, you will receive an error message. Additionally, an upload field may have file type restrictions. If you attempt to upload a file type that is not an acceptable file, you will also receive a warning message, and you will not be able to upload the file. Even though the system is auto-saving, there is still a Save button at the bottom of the form. When you click Save, you are taken to a confirmation page so you know the save was successful. If you click Continue, you will be taken back into the form so you can continue working. If you save and exit the system, you will access the draft of your form from the dashboard the next time you log in. When all fields are complete, you may submit the application. When a form is submitted successfully, you will be taken to a confirmation page. When you click Continue, you're taken to your dashboard where you can view your submitted request. Note that once a form is submitted, you are no longer able to edit it.
All right, that was pretty simple. I'm going to pull up our, and it logged me out. Of course it did. Pull up our grant application for you guys to look at. Give me just a moment. And this is going to be really quick. We're almost done here. This is the last thing, and then we'll get to your questions. Let me answer that question. Is there one account per nonprofit, or would I create? So it is one account per email address. So whatever email address you create, which really needs to be per nonprofit, then that's how you would do that. So I would prefer one. If you get multiple, if you were to submit a grant for different organizations that you worked for, you need to do different emails to create different accounts. if that makes any sense. If you need more clarity on that, just email me later and we can talk, or you can call me. So let me pull that up. Okay, so from what she was telling us, this is your applicant dashboard. We're going to go to edit application. I already have it in here ready to go. This is where all your information would be. Like she said, if you want to edit your information, you can go here. If you would like to print out your questions and go ask somebody in your organization because you don't know the answer, this is a great place to do that. You'll click on that. It converts it to a PDF, print it out, take it wherever you need to go. So as we scroll down, we have added some questions this year. Did your organization receive a grant award from the Alliance during the previous year, 2020? Which I know it's not the previous year yet, but by the time our cycle ends, it will be 2021. So if you would select yes or no in accordance with that. If yes, please provide how much your organization was awarded and what for. So for an example, I have in here, we gave you guys $3,100 for 2 computers, 2 printers, and storage shelving. As we scroll down, organization history, please give a brief history of your organization and the work that you do. So for an example, a lot of you guys have really good histories, and this is where you would put that in there. You have 1,500 characters, so you have plenty of space to put as much information that you want to give us. And a lot of the time, the more information you can give us and the scope of what it is that you do, the better. As we scroll down, then you can select your county, and you can select as many counties as apply. So if you do statewide, you can select them all. If you only do one, you can do just one single one. And then, so this question we had on our paper grant before, and it was in a single question. It was, how many families or individuals do you serve? And we had a lot of confusion whenever they were submitted because we didn't know if you guys were submitting them in family form or individuals. And so a lot of the time we had to guess. So what we're doing this time is we have the questions separated. So if you guys serve families, and that's how you track your numbers, we serve 20 families a month, you put that in there. And if you don't count individuals, you'll put 0 in the individual section and vice versa. Also with the duplicates, if you count duplicates, if somebody comes in this week and they come in next week and you guys count them every single week as your monthly numbers, then yes, you would count duplicates, and that's where you would choose that. This is where you would track your minors or your seniors who you serve. Also, we added a demographic question. We are adding a racial equity lens to our grant processes. So there's some information here that I'll read for you guys. It says, what is the primary ethnicity of the population you serve? At the Alliance, we are aware that communities of color need additional targeted support and commit as an organization to work toward that. Due to a history of racism and discriminatory policies against people of color in Arkansas, we acknowledge that existing racial disparities stand in the way of our goal of ending hunger. Programming is the only aspect of our work that we must examine. Using a racial equity lens when considering grants will allow the Alliance to engage in important conversations, to prioritize racial equity from the beginning, to be more aware of what we know and don't know, and to put in practice what we say. Racial inequity is a huge impact on food security. So this is where you would choose, and we only need one. This is your primary ethnicity. And then on further down, you give us the percentage of what that ethnicity is. Then we need a secondary ethnicity, and we need a percentage on that as well. And if you notice, these are required questions. Anything with that asterisk, you're going to have to fill that out or you cannot submit the application. We also asked, how has the pandemic impacted your organization and the people you serve in your community? We would like to know what's going on. We know that this year has been tough and everybody has had to make adjustments. We want to know your story. So fill that in there. Select all that apply on this one. What is it you guys operate? Food pantry, backpack program, senior services, let us know there. Please list your community board or current board members in the field below. So with this program, if you have them in an Excel spreadsheet, and you can copy and paste that into this section here, or if you have like a PDF or a Word document and you want to upload it, you have that option. But what you're going to have to do is up here, it has an asterisk. So you have to put something in this field. So if you're going to make an attachment, you'll put see attachment in this box, and then you will attach it here. And so these are limited files. It will take 1 megabyte or MIB, which is bigger than a megabyte. I'm not super tech savvy, but that is the extent of my knowledge on that. So it needs to be a relatively small file. So no JPEGs or anything like that. Also, please list your most recent year's financial statement in the field below. For this one, I did see attachment just for an example, and we uploaded it here. And when it's uploaded, this is how it's going to look. You can delete it out if you chose the wrong file. Pretty simple. Please list your current annual budget. In this one, I went into an Excel spreadsheet, copied and pasted it in. It worked really well. And again, if you would like to attach it, you can attach it there. And then we will need a copy of your 501c3 letter or proof of church affiliation letter. And this is where you would upload it right here. Moving to the next section is project information. And it's just the way the program is, it requires a project name. I know that's something that you guys don't normally do. But you know, if you're replacing your appliances, just name it that. If it's you're updating your storage room, just put that in there, and that's fine. It's just how it identifies in the system. It's kind of on the back end. So just you'll have to put that in there. Put your funding requests. In this section, it's only numerical. Then you'll do your detailed budget items or activities below which you're seeking support. You can either put it in this box or you can attach a file. It's up to you. Then we'll need to know how you plan, explain how these items or activities will help expand or improve the services you provide. We'll need an explanation there. How many more people will you be able to serve? Are you seeking funding from other sources? Yes or no? That is a new question. If yes, please list other funding sources. We just need the name of the organization. And so we're at the very bottom of the grant. Like I said, it's really fast. And this is where you're going to attach your quotes. It gets a little bit tricky if you have big files or multiple documents. So my suggestion is if you have a lot of, like, just say that you were doing a construction project and you have different projects your contractor has sent you through email, and they're all in different files. I would print those out and then scan them back into one PDF and upload it that way. If you have 3 and that's all you have, we have 3 places for you to upload them here. And you have 3 MIB, which is a little bit bigger than that 3 megabyte file. And you can put them there. If you have 20 different small things that you got going on, you can email them to me and I can attach it on the back end. So you've got different options. And I know some people aren't very tech savvy whenever it comes to uploading files and that kind of stuff. And if you have a problem, just give me a call. You know, that 399-9999 number. So whenever you get done, you can either save your application or submit it, and then it'll come to me and we'll move on with the process. Yes.
Can I ask you to come up a couple times in the chat just about collection of information from people that are served by pantries? If you're not collecting information about age, ethnicity, and that is a section of the application, like, is there, what I wrote in the chat is my understanding about our racial equity lens and moving toward making that a priority is that we want to know if there's agencies doing special activities to cater to communities who have been disenfranchised. Is that right? Are they required to turn in numbers? Do you mind just explaining that a little bit more?
They are required to turn in numbers. If you aren't currently tracking those numbers, we need some sort of figure. If it's just a guess, then that's all the information that you have, but we would prefer it if you had, been tracking it, or, and I know that the ethnicity is a new thing. A lot of people don't track the ethnicity. That's fine. I would just, gauge it the best that you can and submit it, but it is going to be required.
Thank you.
And so that concludes the training. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. And we have a few minutes for questions if you guys want to chime in. Or did we get everybody's questions in the chat? I think we did.
There's one question from Linda. There's some questions about other funding sources for the specific project or the entire year. Linda, do you mind clarifying that question? Are you asking if the Alliance has other funding sources?
The application said what other funding sources. So are you asking if we're going to go to Walmart and ask them to buy us a refrigerator and you to buy a refrigerator? Or are you asking us if we're going to go someplace else and say, will you donate food for us? Different projects or?
Yes, it would be for different
That
projects.
makes sense?
Yes. So if you were wanting a new refrigerator, if you're going to apply at United Way and at Walmart and us, that's something that we would like to know.
Okay. Thank you.
So Sandy asked, do you want all other grants from organizations listed? We don't need all other grants. Is this similar to the other funding sources question?
It is, but our mission is a little broader than just hunger relief. So for instance, a historical preservation grant or something that is not related to what we're asking for funding by the Hunger Relief Alliance.
If it's for the same project, I would list it.
Okay.
And I can clarify that. I'm glad you guys are bringing this up because I can adjust anything on here for clarity.
Okay.
And we can definitely add that. And then your other question, I'm sorry, were those related to, yeah. So yes, Hunger Relief, we are the Hunger Relief organization.
Stephanie asked about if we accept more than one application from any organization or just put one in from one org.
Yes, just one application. But if you're, doing multiple organizations, then you are absolutely allowed to submit applications for each organization that you are assisting.
Got it.
And,
Alex?
yeah, Laura Lee asked about being new to grant writing, other training resources you would suggest. Laura Lee, my biggest recommendation is working with me directly for free. I'm a little bit biased, but I think anything that's going to charge you any money is a little bit of a ripoff. Because again, I don't think that there is any magic to grant writing. I think it's just, being honest and checking your grammar and all that. But yeah, I don't think there's any magic secrets that any workshop can tell you. So I'm happy to work with any of y'all directly. I think it's going to be your best deal.
I just want to say thank you all for doing this. Like, this is the second grants workshop with you guys that I've been in, and it's just been really helpful. All of the supplemental documents and everything have been super great. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing this.
Same here. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate everything you guys do every day. You guys are out there day in and day out, volunteering your time to help those that need help. So we appreciate you. All right. Well, I think that we're done here. Thank you guys. And if you need anything, you can always email myself or Alex. And just as a reminder, make sure your memberships are up to date. We will be sending out that email on November the 30th.
Have a good weekend, y'all.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Wow, thanks, y'all.